I'm Frank R. Brazel, and I am a doctoral candidate at Liberty University in the History Department. And in this brief video, I'll be going over my intended dissertation topic and research and where it fits into current historiography of the early American Republic. And so to begin, my dissertation topic is a semi-biographical study of three founding siblings, the Pinckneys of South Carolina, as they navigated the Atlantic world during the years of the early Republic. And so the Pinckneys, two brothers and a sister, were members of the founding generation. They lived through the American Revolution. The brothers served in it. The eldest brother, Charles Cotesworth Pinckney, is known in the history of the early republic for his advocacy of slavery at the Constitutional Convention, advocacy of the continued practice of slavery. And he and his younger brother, Thomas, both were very involved after the Revolution in American politics, in state politics, in South Carolina. Both launched unsuccessful runs for national office, for either vice president or president. And they both served in diplomatic capacities in Europe during this period, in Spain, in France, in Britain, and in the Netherlands, between the two of them. And so the reason I want to look at these individuals, this sister and two brothers, is in the historiography of the founding generation and how they navigated this period after the Constitutional Convention. I found that we really began with George Bancroft, and we began with this creation of the myth of the founders, where their faults were minimized and they were viewed mainly through the methodology of political history. They're made larger than life, almost demigods. And then moving forward, since they've at alternating times been viewed as economic opportunists and self-interested individuals, as in the case of Charles Beard's history, later by Hofstadter, Wood, and by Balin, the founding generation was viewed much more ideologically. They were viewed for the ideological exchanges that occurred to bring these thoughts to the U.S. Constitution. So were they classical Republican virtues? Were they borrowed English virtues? These ideas, the founders in general, were viewed in this light. And then since, in the historiography of the early Republic, there's been a much greater presence of scholarship looking at marginalized groups, previously unstudied groups, using often social and economic histories as methodologies. And so we've had wonderful histories of the period from the eyes of African Americans, enslaved persons, and women. And that is become a dominant force and a useful force in the historiography of the early republic. So my proposal is to go back to look at early founders, and particularly in this case, the Pinckneys, to look at them not just as political titans, not just as those with economic self-interest, but look at them as people who lived a real life, to almost in line with Beard's economic self-interest, but really to focus on them as people who might have been politically motivated, yes, who might have wanted to establish a new nation, but who were also very much affected by world events. And where that is especially pressing with the Pinckneys is their involvement in the Atlantic world. They had contacts in England, they had contacts in France, they had family members in France. They did business with the belligerent powers during this period between 1789 and 1815. So during the French Revolutionary Wars and the Napoleonic Wars, as they and their fellow Americans navigated a world, an Atlantic world, in which neutral trade was often threatened. And at times, the United States, of course, was dragged into conflicts with those European powers. And so my research will study this family, these founders, these granted upper class people uh, whose stories have been told from political and diplomatic angles, but less from their personal lives as that was impacted. But it's looking at how some of America's founders, some of America's early decision makers, and powerful individuals in the country were impacted personally. How were their interests affected by the conflicts going on between Britain and France? And so, largely, yes, it will be an Atlantic history. Largely, it is going to focus on what the Pinckneys are doing and who they're having contact with back and forth across the Atlantic between 1789 and about 1815. But it's also going to hopefully yield some insights on how individuals across the United States and the United States as a political nation as a whole was impacted by the conflicts between other states, much older states in the Atlantic world. Thank you.